Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Let me show you what we are going to build today. I came across this hero section and I eyeballed it and I was like, man, that has some unique challenges. And anytime a layout like this has unique challenges, presents really good learning opportunities. Let me show you some things, okay? Look at that and that. Those are inverted radius, but I'm also interested, I mean, those are difficult on their own. We're gonna use automatic CSS to make that very easy. But there's another challenge with this is how they are positioned and the fact that there is another group of content right here that they are related to, yet they're separate from the featured image, which is the thing that actually has the inverted radius. That in itself is even more of a challenge. There's another challenge here in the sense that this edge of the featured image is in perfect alignment with the final item in this element group, which again, two unrelated things need to have some semblance of a perfect relationship in order to line up properly. That's another challenge in and of itself. We're also gonna see alignment here with the heading and the top of the image. You're gonna see alignment with the bottom of the image and the bottom of this lead, but this kind of leaves this button hanging as like an orphan in this layout, which I don't really like. So what I'm actually gonna do as kind of like a tweak to this layout, okay, is I am going to bring the image down so that it aligns with the bottom of the button. And that kind of makes this a nice, clean, even layout. Like I said, a lot of different challenges here. We're gonna use grid, probably grid areas. We're gonna use subgrid. We have some padding in here. Right in, oh, that's the wrong tool. Can I draw? There we go. A little bit of padding, it seems, inside of here, yet we're not gonna be able to use padding on that element if we use subgrid, and I'm gonna show you why. So that's gonna present another unique challenge that we're gonna have to solve. There's just a lot here, and I posted this on Facebook, I posted this on X. A lot of people said, Kevin, I wouldn't even build that layout. I would just avoid that layout. I have no idea how to solve those challenges. I would tell the designer, simplify this, come back, do something different. I'm not building that. I can't build that, right? I want you to feel empowered to solve challenges like this. All we need is more tools in our toolbox, and that is exactly what I'm gonna give you in today's training. So I'm gonna hop over to Etch, and we are going to build this up. I'll explain it as I go. If you get lost, remember, you can pause, you can rewind, you can slow it down, you can do whatever you need to do. But I am going to just kind of go nice, steady pace and explain everything as best I can. So I'm gonna start by adding a section. We're gonna call this our main hero. I'm gonna call this the inner, and then I need to figure out what actual elements that I need, right? We're thinking in terms of elements and boxes, right? So I'm gonna say that we need a heading, obviously. We're gonna need a featured image, which is wrapped in a figure tag. We're gonna need a group that we'll call featured speakers. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pretend like we're building the hero section, the main hero, for like a conference landing page. So we're gonna have a stage kind of image over here. These are gonna be our featured speakers. This text is gonna say like featured speakers. Then we'll have a group down here for the content and the call to actions. We'll just call that the content wrapper. And that's gonna be our elements right there. And we're gonna arrange these in a grid, and then we're gonna use subgrid to show how one element or another group of elements can actually inherit the parent grid so that everything lines up perfectly, okay? All right, let's hop back over. And so we're gonna start adding our things. So the first thing we're gonna need is a heading. The next thing that we're gonna need is an image, but I'm gonna right click that image and wrap in div so that I can make sure that it's in a figure tag. And we'll call this the featured image wrapper. And we'll call this the featured image, perfect. The next thing that we're gonna need is a flex div, and this is gonna be for our featured speakers. Okay, so I'll just call it speakers, so we'll shorten it. And then we're gonna add a paragraph, which is gonna be the intro. And then we need another image. This is going to be a, and I'm actually going to delete that. I'm going to hold command while I add that so it adds it adjacent to it. I'm going to call this headshot. And of course, we're going to have 3 of them, right? But before I duplicate them, I want to right click, wrap in div, and I want to also make that a figure. Okay, perfect. So we're going to say headshot wrapper, and we're going to say headshot. Great, fantastic. This is speakers. We got our headshot wrapper and our headshot. We have our intro. So that group is done right there. What else did we say we need? We say we needed a content group. Okay, so we'll say content wrapper, which I believe had a paragraph and a link inside of it. So we're gonna say that's the lead paragraph, and then this is the CTA, or the call to action. Okay, I think I've got all of my stuff here. I've got it named the way that I want it named. So I'm gonna go right click and I'm gonna create BEM classes for this. Now on main hero, I'm gonna go ahead and say display grid. We're gonna go grid template columns, and I'm not sure if we go like 12 column grid with this, which does give us a lot of flexibility, but it's also gonna be a lot more typing when I use my grid areas, okay? I'm gonna try to get away with a 6 column grid to start out with. We're gonna say grid template areas, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to handle these grid template areas and why we use grid template areas in a situation like this. Let's go back to the visualization, okay? We've got a lot of things that have to essentially be placed in a grid, and some of them require like changing their spans and all of that. You're gonna do a lot of like jumping around and start here and end here and like span this if you don't use grid areas. If you use grid areas, you're actually gonna be able to just take an element and say, go to that area, go to that area, go to this area over here. It really, really, really simplifies things. When you first look at it, it's like, what is going on? But once you've done it a couple times, you realize, wow, this is really, really handy. Okay, so the best way that I can explain it to you is you write the words, and every word you write is a named area, and every word represents a column, and then you can create rows as well, okay? So if you think about this visualization, and I'm gonna draw a rectangle, okay? Let's clear all that out, grab our rectangle. This is essentially, and we're gonna count 6, okay? So let me get our text out here, right? What are we starting with? Well, we're gonna start with a heading. And that heading is gonna span 3 columns. And then the other 3 columns is gonna be what? Image, 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 okay? So that would be row number 1. Now, I can duplicate that. Let's come down here. What is this row down here gonna be? Well, it's gonna be speakers, 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 okay? Speakers, 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 and then still image, 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 okay? And then I'm going to, don't worry about the fact that it actually spans. We're gonna handle that in just a second, but this is the next row of content. And then if I duplicate that and come down here for the final row, what do we have? We have content, 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 image, 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 right? Because remember, that's a content wrapper. These 2 things are grouped together as one. And so it's content, 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 image, image, image. So these are our grid areas. You guys, did I do a good job of explaining that, of how this actually works? So let's go ahead and turn that off. Let's go back and let's try to make this happen. Heading, 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 image, image, image. That's row number 1. Now I'm gonna grab that, okay? I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna paste, and this is gonna be row number 2. And then I'm gonna paste another one, and this is row number 3. So instead of heading, 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 I'm just gonna grab those real quick, and we're gonna say speakers. And I'm just using multi-cursor editing in Etch, which allows me to select all 3 of those words at the same time. And then I'm going to say content. So we have heading, 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 image, 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 speaker, speaker, speakers, image, 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 content, 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 image, image, image. Those are my grid template areas. So now what I'm gonna do, and I'm sorry, I'm doing this on main hero. I should not be doing this on main hero. I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna do this on the inner, Okay, this is the actual grid, is the inner. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to heading, and all I have to do is say grid area, and I can say, hey, you belong in the heading area. Go where you belong, right? We already mapped these areas out, just go there. I don't have to say like, starts on grid column 1, spans to grid column 3 or 4 or whatever. I just say go to your area. That's all I do. I named a bunch of areas, and I'm like, go to your home, right? Go to your home. Okay, so this featured image wrapper, right? We're gonna say grid area, and we're gonna say image. You live in the image area. Now I'm gonna go to speakers. I'm gonna say grid area. You live in speakers. I'm gonna go to content wrapper. I'm gonna say grid area. You live in content. And look, everything has gone to its place. Now we can look at situations like this where the featured image does actually, the wrapper, the figure, right, spans all the way to the bottom, but the image does not. Why is that? Well, one reason is this is an SVG placeholder. Those behave a little bit differently than images, but it's just basic CSS stuff now, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a source for this, and I'm gonna say use that media, and then I'm gonna say things like flex 1, and I'm gonna say block size of 100%, and I'm gonna say object fit of cover, and now suddenly our featured image is spanning all the way through from the top of our grid to the bottom of our grid. Look, we talked about certain things being in alignment, right? Where that is in perfect alignment, where that is in perfect alignment. If my line was actually straight, you would see it, okay? I keep making a curved line, apparently. Let's go like that, and let's not tilt it. Okay, good. So we've already got some alignment stuff happening, which is really, really, really good. Next thing that we're gonna do is let's get in control of the speakers right here. I'm gonna say color of white, okay? Let's get our text to be white in there. And now what we need to do is we need to probably put a headshot in. Let's get a headshot like in as a placeholder, okay? So we'll say use that media. And then we're gonna do a duplicate and a duplicate, okay? So I've got 3 different headshots in here. And all I really need to do here is I need to get these to be in a grid type alignment. And here's where I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna say display of grid template columns of subgrid. And it's automatically going to inherit the number of columns in the parent grid, which by the way is 6. And now I'm realizing, you know, we've got 4 items here and I need them to span 2 because I need to get to 8 when I span across. I'm not thinking that 6 is gonna be the best way to go about this. I'm thinking that 4 times 2 is 8. I'm thinking we should do 12. We should do 12. So I'm gonna go from 6 to 12. And then what we have to do when we go from 6 to 12, and I'm gonna try to zoom in down here so you guys can see this. So 3 turns into 6, and 3 turns into 6, and we end up with 12. So we're just gonna say heading, 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 and then image, 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 image. All right, I'm just gonna essentially duplicate these. I can actually come down here, duplicate that, and then we're gonna take image, 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 duplicate that, okay? So our named areas still all work perfectly, right? And now what we should be able to do is we should be able to come down here and say, hey, grab all direct children of this little speakers group. That's 4 items, there's 4 of them, right? And we're gonna say grid column span 2, okay? And I think when we actually stretch this in a minute, it'll fix this little situation that we've got going on right here. I'm gonna say justify content to the center on this intro. Oh, you know what? That is, okay. We're not gonna do that here. We're gonna do that on speakers, all right? This would actually probably be align items to the center now. There we go, perfect. So those are all, that text is gonna be in alignment. And why don't we just replace this text while we're here? So we're gonna say featured speakers, just like that, just like that. And I'm wondering, you know, should we make that an H2 instead of a paragraph? We're gonna make this an H1 because this is the main heading. we could make this an H2 for featured speakers. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's make that intro an H2. And we can just kind of morph things in Etch. You know, I had a paragraph, but I needed to be a heading. I just changed the tag. Now it's a heading. Okay. It's fantastic. All right. So let's do that. And then this content right here, where did I put the text, the color white? Let's change that to text light, and let's put that on this entire main hero, okay? So let's do color, text, light. Good. That's all gonna be light by default. And actually, you know what? Let's do muted. And you know what? I need to go into my ACSS. I have not set this up yet, and we actually have a bunch of deprecated stuff in here probably, because this is an old blueprint. Let's clear these out, and this should actually work by default. Base ultra dark, base dark, base. Okay, those are all good. Text dark. Default text color is text light. Dark muted. There we go. So that's going to be 70%. Light muted is going to be, you can just ignore this part. This is not really required. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Just wanted to get those colors set up because we had some, this is an old blueprint. I just noticed we had some deprecated color stuff going on. Okay. So, the number one conference in the WordPress space, okay, is almost here. There you go. Let's just get like the number one. Okay, and let's go text transform capitalize. There we go. All right, the number one conference in the WordPress space is almost here. Fantastic. Let's see if we can get this overlapping now. So we have this thing. It's sitting in the speaker area, right? But what we need to do is we need to come in here and say grid column, and we can actually say speakers and then say span, and we can say 8, okay? And look at this overlap that we get. And look at we just by using Subgrid and doing a little bit of a span here. So we're saying start on speakers, which is the start of speakers is right here, and just span 8. We know, hey, it's a 12 column grid. If it spans 8, we're gonna get this overlap right here. But the fact that it's using Subgrid means, let me try to zoom in here. Look at this. We have perfect alignment out of the box. And even though we're using gaps and all this other stuff, we have perfect alignment out of the box. That is phenomenal, okay? See, it's not that difficult, guys. It's not that difficult. All right, what we wanna do here is we probably want to, let's see how this is gonna behave. Because I'm worried about when we have like a tall image, like this is a tall image, right? That's gonna be a problem, okay? So let's do an aspect ratio of 1 and just see if that messes up our alignment at all. It doesn't look like it does. Object fit cover, that seems like it's gonna be just absolutely perfect. Okay, I really like that. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do, I don't want all these things so close together, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a margin block, and I might do like a space M, and that's gonna space both of those things away. But I actually probably want the top to be more than the bottom. So we can kind of like offset this almost. There we go, okay? That's gonna look really good like that. Okay, let's put some lorem text in here. I think we can do like lorem 20, okay? Hey, that's perfect. We're gonna have this as a button primary. I really like that. Let's come over here and say purchase tickets. That's a great call to action. I'm gonna take this whole content wrapper. You can still do stuff like this. Max inline size, 30 characters, 35 characters, something like that. Let's save. Let's just go to the front end and see what we've got going on. Okay. Like, it's looking really good. I think it's a little dark, especially with this image back here. So I'm gonna go with background, and we're gonna do BG dark, okay? So maybe more of like a charcoaly light gray kind of situation going on. That's a little bit better. Okay, so now what I wanna handle, the cutout situation and the border radius situation and all of that. Let's go back right here and take a look at what we need to do. So First of all, we need to make our radius bigger in general. This is a bigger radius. This is a bigger radius than what we've got going on our images, okay? That's an automatic CSS thing. I'm gonna go to borders, border radius. Let's do 20 pixels, okay? That seems pretty good. These are deprecated, so I'm gonna go ahead and just undo those, reset them. Okay, so now our radius is much better here. Let's go ahead and tackle how we're gonna do this inverted radius. Remember, this inverted radius needs to live essentially where this image, this last image lives. And there's a couple different ways we can actually go about doing this. Like perhaps we could use a pseudo element. I'm not sure. I think, yeah, I mean, we could try that. But the pseudo element is gonna be on what exactly? Because it has to be, it can't be on this wrapper. It's gotta be on this, just this image. So like what, the third headshot wrapper essentially. So like inth of type 3, and we could say border 5 pixel solid red. So right there, maybe that's, we're selecting the third one. I think this could work, okay? So we're gonna do before on here. I'm gonna come in here and show you what I'm doing. So if we did content of blank, we're just essentially gonna create a box. Like let's create a red box. Let's just create a red box. So I'm gonna say inline size of, okay, now we're probably gonna position this absolute, which means the wrapper itself needs to be position relative. And then I'm gonna say inset of 0 and a background of red. And let me zoom out and see. I think it might be there. I think position absolute, oh, inline size of 100%. Okay, see it? We got our red box. I actually don't think we need that inline size. Well, we're gonna need it in a minute. So let's put it there. And let's also put a block size of 100% because we're gonna need that too, I believe. We could probably do this all with inset, but it's probably easier to just do it with inline size. Okay, now, if I put a border radius on this, border radius of radius, it's gonna look like it's cut out, okay? Because like, what if I change the background to the background of our section right here? So I'm gonna say var bg dark, right? Look how it almost looks already like we're cutting it out. But remember, the original looks like we have padding, okay? So how are we gonna do that? Well, we're gonna fake it, right? We're not gonna add padding. I'm gonna show you probably in a minute why we can't just do padding, like, and why we're not just using this entire container right here. But let's keep going down this little rabbit hole that we've got going on. I need this box to be bigger than the image. And the question is, how much bigger? Well, bigger equivalent to the amount of padding that I want. The amount of space, if I want all this to be symmetrical, the amount of space between the images, which is called the content gap in automatic CSS, right? If the padding is equal to content gap, it will all look perfectly symmetrical. That's essentially what we want. But we're not using padding. What are we using? We're using this box. This box needs to be bigger in the amount of content gap on all sides, right? So content gap above and below is 2 content gaps. So that's content gap times 2. So if I did block size, we could do a calc here, right? Calc. And we're gonna do 100% plus content gap times 2. And now that box is 2 times as tall. That's the block size, right? That's the block axis. Now the inline size is plus just content gap, just 1 content gap, okay? Content gap, can I get autocomplete? There we go. So now it's on the right side, it's content gap, 1 content gap unit bigger, okay? And now we just need to center that box on the element it's attached to. And the way that you do that, when you have inset set to 0, let's see, we're gonna translate this, minus 50%, I don't think we need to actually go that way at all. Minus 50%, okay? We're gonna need to change the inset here. Inset block start 50%, okay? So we say inset 50% from the top, and then we translate it back 50%. That's a good way to center things. That's a classic way to center things. Now, I actually don't need a radius on the top left and the bottom left, right? So this border radius that I'm applying to all sides right here, I'm gonna come down here and explain this. If I put 4 values here, it's essentially top left, top right, bottom left. So bottom left, I don't need any. Top left, I don't need any. I just need top right and bottom right. And then if I zoom out, you're gonna see the radius is gone from those 2 corners. And look what I'm starting to develop here, right? That looks like a cutout, does it not? That looks, my friends, like a cutout. Now, the only problem I'm gonna run into here is I can't attach, because the pseudo element is not a real element, I can't attach my data attributes to it for my inverted radius. That's not good. So I've gone down a path where I was like, okay, and this is the process of building these kinds of layouts where you may not know exactly how to approach it. And you may go down a path that ends up being a dead end, and you've got to try something different. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna scrap that. I'm gonna use some of like what I just learned will work, okay? But I'm gonna go a completely different route. The dead end I ran into is I can't do the inverted radius that I wanna do because I need data attributes, and in order to do that, we need a real element. So I am going to put a real element in here. I'm just gonna throw a flex div in here, and that's gonna be called my cutout, okay? So that's my cutout element. And I'm gonna say, this is my main hero, speakers, cutout. Great. And I'm gonna say, position this absolute. Now I'm gonna tell you a little bit of trick in absolute positioning in grids. Absolute positioning in grids works absolutely fabulous, because the minute you position it absolute, you can still use grid columns and spans and all of that stuff to locate it inside of the grid. What I need to do is come up to the speakers here, and I just need to position this relative. Since we had a child in here that was positioned absolute, and we need to contain that child. All right, so what did we learn? Hey, if we can get a red box on the screen, we can work from there, okay? So let's go background of red, and now we give it dimensions, right? Okay, so we wanted to live, let's go grid column. We're gonna say, remember we have 8, right? So we're gonna position it on 6, and we go to -1. No, we position it on 7 and go to -1. So if I position it on column 7, which is the end essentially, and then go to the start of the end, and then go to the end, that's what -1 means. -1 means go to the end. Look what it's done. I positioned this absolute, but I was able to place it in a specific column, which just happens to be the exact same size of the image that we're working with. And now I can do block size of 100%, and I can do inline size of 100%. And look, that inline size of 100% doesn't make it leave that column assignment. It's still in its column assignment. That means I can use the calcs that I know work, right, to expand the width and height of this box. So now I'm gonna say, block size calc, we already learned what we need to do here, is gonna be 100% plus the content gap, but we need 2 of the content gaps. And look, actually, it's already automatically vertically centered because of its grid positioning, which is just fantastic. That just solves another, we don't have to do the translate and all that stuff. Okay, so the inline size, we learned, actually this needs to be a calc, 100% plus var content gap. And look, it's gonna stay on the left. It's gonna stay where I told it to start, and it's only gonna go the rest of the way. Next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna say, instead of background red, actually let's do our border radius first. What did we learn in our other path, right? Even though we went down a path that was a dead end, it's very important to understand this. We saw some of the techniques that are going to be required to get to the eventual solution. And now we can just repeat those, okay? So we we had to re-engineer it a little bit, but we don't have to re-engineer everything. We still know a lot of the things that are going to work. So border radius is gonna be radius, okay? And I'm gonna take that and I am going to copy and I'm gonna say 1, that's 2, 3, and 4. And I know that that one is a 0 and I know that this one is a 0. And I'm going to say, oh, there we go. We broke it with an extra thing. Look at that shape. Look at that. That's the exact shape that we want. Now, if I say this is BG dark, now it looks like we've got a cutout. And guys, we're back to exactly what we had, but now I have a real physical element that I can add a inverted radius to. And the way that I do that is, well, first of all, in automatic CSS, you're gonna go to borders and dividers, additional radius options, inverted radius support, and make sure that that is turned on, okay? Now we're gonna do this. There is full documentation on this. If you've never seen it before, inverted radius is very difficult to accomplish. Automatic CSS makes it very easy, but you do need to read the documentation because it's not like an intuitive situation, okay? Once you've done it a few times and you've practiced it, it becomes really easy, as you're gonna see, but there is documentation that you're gonna have to read through. And trust me, reading through the documentation and implementing this method is way faster, still light years faster than trying to figure out this inverted radius situation on your own. Okay, so I'm gonna add some data attributes. Data, inverted radius 1, radius 1, position. So it's 2 pseudo elements that we're gonna be working with here, and we need to position the first one, okay? And that position is going to be top outside left, top outside left, okay? Top outside left. And these, you kind of got to visualize where this box is going, okay? And give it the proper coordinates. You're gonna see in just a second. And if you read the documentation, you're gonna get it, okay? Data inverted radius 1 slice equals bottom left. I wanna slice the bottom left of that box, okay? And I'm gonna add that, and it's gonna add that right there. And that marker lets me know I've done this correctly, and I'm gonna show you how to finalize this in just a second. Now I'm gonna add data inverted radius 2 position, and that's going to be bottom outside left, kind of the opposite of the first one. Data inverted radius 2 slice is gonna be the top left. Again, kind of the inverse of the other one that I did. And that is showing me that that is correct. Now, the reason that they're white is they need to know the background color that we are working with, right? The background is BG dark, but I'm gonna say the background actually just needs to be BG because I know the inverted radius framework uses the token BG to set this color right here. So if this box is using BG and the radiuses are using BG, we're gonna be able to set the BG of the section right here. So you see this, BG dark, I'm gonna set to BG, and then simply define what BG is, which is BG dark, okay? And everything now works. Let's go check this out. Awesome. So I've got, let me zoom in here. I've got perfect inverted radius, okay? Normal radius. I've got a cutout, and all we need to factor in here is essentially the Z-index of what we're working with. So I've got like this situation here where this cutout needs to go behind, and let's say Z-index, actually, we don't wanna put that behind. We wanna elevate, yeah, no, we probably do wanna put it behind, but then we wanna elevate the entire speaker row, which also makes sense because these speakers are overlapping and they belong on top, right? And so I've changed Z-index 2 on the speaker row. I got -1 on our cutout, and look at what we've got going on here. I don't know why we're still having a Z-index issue here. What I can probably do is I can say Z-index -1 on the cutout. That should be correct. We got a little problem we gotta solve here. Isolation of isolate might help on this entire row here. Isolation of isolation. I cannot type today, man. I cannot type today. We've got a working in the, oh, okay. We're working in the builder, but we're not working on the front end. That's very interesting. Let's inspect this. Okay. Got a div here, comes after the figure. Maybe I'll just put the cutout. I'll just put the cutout first in the DOM. So if I have all of these in a line, like this should come on the bottom now just by default, like regardless of our Z-index situation. Ooh, it's still not. It's still not. Or are we losing our figure somewhere? We're not losing our figure. Okay, so I think what we can do is just elevate the Z-index of these figures. So if I do Z-index of 2 on our headshot wrappers, there we go. Now we're in business. Now we are in business. Okay, I'm gonna come in here, text transform of uppercase and font size of text M, or it's a heading, so I can do something like H3. Let's see how that looks. Featured speakers. Okay. Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Okay, I've got my description down here. I mean, guys, we've done a really, oh, you know what I'm noticing? What are we off here on? Maybe I do need to, oh, you know what? Okay, there's a little something going on here. Figure, oh, the figures, that's right. Gutenberg likes to add margin by default. So I'm just gonna say margin of 0. And then let's go check that out on the front end, and that cleans that up. So like, look at this, like the symmetry here and the alignment being perfect. I mean, you're gonna run into challenges, right? It's the idea that, hey, I can work through these challenges. I can figure this out. I can get to the solution. That's ultimately what we want to be able to do. You saw I ran into a couple little, like the little Z-index thing, a thing where the pseudo element wasn't gonna work with the techniques that we needed to be able to use. We switched to a regular element. It's just working your way step by step to the solution. Now, I know what you guys are gonna say, Kevin, that's fantastic, but how on earth are you gonna manage this on mobile, right? Like this is gonna be a disaster on mobile. Look, all the stuff you did with grid template areas, you had to write out all those words, you made a 12 column grid, you're doing spans and starts, this is gonna be a disaster. Kevin, what is, and you got inverted radiuses, you got, this is gonna be a disaster. Okay, I can hear it now, I can hear it now. So I am gonna do this for you. I am gonna do this for you. We are gonna tackle responsiveness of this. And I think you're gonna see, it's not as difficult. And actually some of the stuff we did, some of the techniques we use like grid template areas actually makes this very, very easy, okay? All right, let's take a look at what we need to do. First of all, in Etch, you have fluid responsiveness. So you can always check any device at any time, any size at any time, right? Devices are no longer relevant in the modern era. We're just worried about, does this look good at every possible size, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find first where this becomes unacceptable. And I would say it's somewhere around 1,000. Let's just get to 1,000. There's 1,000 right here. You could argue that's still acceptable, right? In terms of a layout, but like we go under that, we're gonna start running into problems, okay? So I'm gonna say 1,000 is gonna essentially be our cutoff point. And watch what happens here. So under 1,000, what if we under 1,000 just changed all of this, okay? The grid 12, the grid template areas, because remember, everything is already assigned to its area. So what if we just change the areas under 1,000 pixels? Watch this, okay? And I'm gonna do this as a simplified version, but you're gonna get the point, okay? You could add as much complexity in here as you want. So I'm gonna right click here and I'm gonna say add media query, and you're gonna see it adds the media query that I need, 1,000 pixels, less than or equal to 1,000 pixels. Why is it giving me 1,000? Because that's what I'm previewing. That's how Etch works. It's just helpful like that, okay? So I'm gonna come in and say, you know what? Instead of what we were doing a minute ago, let's do grid template columns and let's say grid 1. And then let's say, grid template areas, let's just redefine those, okay? So let's come in and let's say that we're gonna start with our heading. And then the next row is going to be our featured image, right? Which is called image. And the next row is gonna be our speakers. And the next row is going to be our content, okay? And then So we're just redefining the areas, right? Look at what we had up here and look at what we have down here. And now we're gonna come down and we're gonna see, you remember we did this, the spans, right? On the speakers right here where we did this grid column span. No, that was actually grid column span 2. Yeah, that's still gonna need to be, that we're not gonna need that on mobile. And then this grid column, start on speakers, go to span 8. We need to change that, okay? So I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna right click, add a media query. It's gonna add another one exactly like I was doing a second ago. I'm gonna take this grid column and I'm just gonna say speakers. We're not gonna span 8, okay? We're just gonna say assign it to the speakers column. And then what we need is this grid column span 2. I can come in here and just say grid column span 1, and that's gonna make sure that we don't actually have any overflow issues. And then I'm noticing the headshot wrapper, the headshot itself, we probably need to inline size this to 100%. Okay, fantastic. So it fills up any available space. Now, featured speakers are not actually gonna look super great on here, you know? We should still maybe have those in their own grid template columns, like a new grid template columns of 4, like that. So we could still have that in alignment, and then we could change it again at a different device size if we wanted to. Or I could do something like grid auto 4 with that. Yeah, that would even kind of make it automatically responsive if I wanted to do it that way. But maybe not. Maybe I'll just do this. I'll manage this manually, okay? Yeah. And then I think we'll span this. We'll figure that out in a minute, okay? Remember we did this max inline size. That actually only needs to happen at 1,000 or above, right? So let's get back to 1,000, or we can really do whatever we want and just drop another media query in here and just change it to greater than or equal to, and then 1,000, and then just drop that max inline size inside of there, okay? So that's really only going to apply greater than or equal to 1,000. It's gonna get its max inline size, I think. I don't know where we're at. I don't know, it should be max inline size, grid area, content, width. Yeah, no, that's correct. Greater than or equal, 100. No. We need 1,000. There we go. Sorry, my brain wasn't processing numbers properly. Okay, so greater than or equal to 1,000, we're gonna get our max inline size, which means when we go up here, look at that, perfect, okay, and it's gonna stay. I mean, look, like, I'm not doing a ton here. I mean, look at this, look at this. Now, let's come down and see where does that featured speakers row really kind of get unacceptable, okay? Like here, I'm gonna start, I wanna just take this featured speakers, which is the intro, well, yeah, okay. That's fine, okay. So we'll take that. It's actually just the first child. So we're gonna drop another media query in here. So we're gonna say add a media query. So less than or equal to 640, we're gonna take the nth child, man, can't type today, nth child 1, grid column 1, -1, okay? Grid column 1, -1, width less than or equal to 640, nth child 1. Let's do a border 5 pixel solid red. What are we on? Oh, we're on the speakers group. Oh, the cutout is the first child. Okay, so we're gonna take main hero intro, cut out speakers, come down here. We'll just do this. Main hero intro, there you go. And there's only one of those. We don't need to do the direct child version, okay? And now we have that spanning the entire thing, okay? Which automatically puts these on their own row. So we have featured speakers. All we really need to do here is take off the border 5 pixel solid red, and now we have our featured speakers kind of in a line. And the question now is, does that ever really like not work, right? We've got the cutout. The cutout, where did the cutout need to disappear? At 1,000 pixels, right? So I'm gonna say, let's drop a media query in here, at greater or less than 1,000, or sorry, less than or equal to 1,000 pixels, display none. Like, just get rid of that. There it goes. It's gone. Okay? And that was causing some overflow issues. It's no longer causing any issues anymore. I'm just trying to figure out why these are not. So 1, 2, 3. Those should be filling in this grid. Grid for 1, 2, 3. Oh, it needs to be 3. Yeah, if we're gonna span the entire thing, but does that break? Yeah, that breaks it there. So it does need to be 4, but when we span it right here, we need to go to grid template columns 3. That's what we need to do, okay? So right here, grid template columns 3. And then we're gonna bring, there we go. Now we're filling it all out. And that really takes us all the way down. Like we're not going any lower than that. That's literally the minimum, okay? And we're good to go. So like, I just like that. And I can also say probably right there, we don't need that margin block situation anymore. So I can just margin block of 0 to tighten all of that up. Bring those featured speakers in right underneath. I mean, look at this. Look at this. It wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard. So let's go look at this on the front end. Here's our normal version. I'm gonna go into responsive mode. Click that button right there. I'm gonna start bringing this down. Everything's looking good. Bang, it flips. Still looking nice. Another breakpoint coming. Our buttons are set to go 100% width on mobile and automatic CSS if you turn that setting on. Now this breaks and it's gonna stay that way for the rest of the time. And that is just a really, really nice hero section. I'm gonna probably make this a frame, okay? Available for everybody. You're gonna be able to copy and paste this right into your project. It's gonna work out of the box. Everything's gonna be fantastic. What more do you want? What more do you want, okay? If you like this, if you found it helpful, what do? You pay, not with money, pay with a like, pay with a comment, pay with a share, okay? There's your 3 ways to pay. You can pay one way, you can pay all the ways. Pay with a like, pay with a comment, pay with a share. I'll be back very soon with another top flight, A+, 5-star tutorial very soon. Cheers.